Hello everyone, I am going to make another long video about the very important topic of acceptance doesn't mean agreement, which is a very, very difficult concept to wrap our heads around, as the majority of societies, regardless of the culture, the background, their thinking patterns, their religion, their beliefs about relationships, people are very, very adamant that acceptance means agreement. So what they basically do is they think that if you have a belief system, a very simple one is like a sports team. Let's use a Yankees versus Boston baseball in America, and it sounds like a silly one, but it's how you start with small, because it's very hard to apply this to the really big things. But you might say, an example would be, okay, that person's a Boston fan. There's no way I can like them. So people are getting into fist fights at sporting events and stuff like that, all over sporting events. I mean, there was a really sad case where a guy basically got into a fight and had killed someone by punching them, and they fell over a railing. I mean, think about it. This guy is now going to jail for manslaughter over a sports team. It might sound ridiculous at face value, but that's how much we don't really quite understand as a human race that acceptance doesn't mean agreement. So before I go any further, look for that link down below. Email Phil will get you in right away. Like I said, we work with multiple different time zones. We're all over, and the webinars are on Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. UK time, which I think is, they're great. People love the webinars. We just had our first friends and family one, which was terrific. We had moms on there, dads, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives. Those ones we hope to promote more, because it is important for the sufferers' loved ones, if they're living with them, to understand why reassurance to them is really bad for us, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go into some really good practical examples. You're married and your husband or wife cheats on you. Now, does that mean the relationship is automatically over? No. Now, depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you that their relationship is automatically over, but it's just not that simple, because if it was, every time anyone cheated, they wouldn't be in the relationship. So, but that's just how society works. So the action of cheating on a human being, whether it's physical cheating or whether it's cheating with money, is not a horrible action. It's just an action that humans commit. So until the individual becomes more accepting of human behavior, it's very difficult to look at that as a human action. That doesn't mean you're not going to be hurt. It doesn't mean you're not going to be, by the way, I just had someone walk directly past me as I was saying that. That's a good exposure. She did not have headphones on. Literally, could you imagine what she was just thinking? She's like, this kid's nuts, saying that cheating is okay. Not what we're saying. We're just saying that cheating is a behavior, and we understand why people do it. And that's very, very different than saying that we like that people cheat. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that your spouse can cheat on you. You can decide to have a conversation with them in a calm, cool, collected way. Probably have some emotions rise up. Best to try and control that. Understand that humans are attracted to other people. That's what they do. Trying to control people's urges doesn't ever work. And then maybe you sit down and try to further the relationship. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've worked with an individual. Their boyfriend cheated on them. They're probably going to watch this and laugh. The individual cheated on them. They decide to stick with it and forgive this individual. Unfortunately, they cheated again, and she ended the relationship. But that was something that most people would be like, you're an idiot. Why would you ever stay with someone who cheats on you? You're doing a disservice to yourself, etc. These are very, very fluffy, rigid, when people say monsters, there's no such thing as a monster. Monster is a human concept. An individual or a beast in general, like, when a grizzly bear rips someone to pieces, they say that's a monster. No, it's just a grizzly bear doing what grizzly bears do. Just an unfortunate outcome. So that's one example. Another example would be physical violence. This is another big one that people struggle with. Harm, OCD, and the fear of losing control. So the way you look at it from the most rational point is this. If I lost control, I wouldn't be able to control it, because I would have lost control. I don't like the feelings and the urgency of harming someone, but I can accept the reality of that as I go about changing my perspectives with hurting people, because that's the main thing you're trying to avoid as an OCD sufferer. You're trying to walk this maze in your mind where you're like, I'm not going to hurt anyone. There's no way I can take that risk. So I remove all the knives out of my house as one simple example. Or like, I don't sleep in the bedroom with my husband anymore. I sleep on the couch, or I never cuddle with my children when they want to go to bed because they're scared of the lightning. What if I lose control and snap their neck in the middle of the night? So it's because you're afraid of self-rejection, and you're afraid of rejection by other people. But what people say is they go, well, if I go towards that fear, that means, what if I actually want that to happen? You're confusing acceptance with agreement. We're saying that you're never going to get absolute certainty on these outcomes coming to fruition. But you can, do your best to put yourself in a situation where you wouldn't want that to happen, but you can't say for sure. Because I'll give you an example. For myself, I really struggle with anger. Like, I struggled with anger really badly. So there was many times where I felt like I was losing control, which meant I was going to yell at people on the road. And then it would happen because I felt like I had lost control, right? Because my anger beliefs were so bad and it was such a habit. Then I would say, oh crap, I got to keep working on that. And I got really good at not berating myself, which was a really, really good trait to have. I don't have any guilt or shame towards myself at all. And I think that's something that many people get wrong, because they believe if you do a bad action that you must feel guilty, that you must feel shameful. That's not true at all. Shame and guilt at a chronic level serve absolutely no purpose, but shame and guilt at a level of a balanced level can be used to change behaviors. And that's the most important thing about chronic guilt and chronic shame when you're trying to take that away. Which is a super important thing. But to say that shame and guilt have no purpose is just simply not true. Because if you go to work and you're doing a project with someone and you see that Timmy has put the work in and you feel guilty because you've been slacking, you can use that healthy dosages of guilt to change your perspectives, which then will actually help you move towards what you want in your life. But you don't look at that from the perspective of, I'm a terrible person because I didn't do this. You say, I don't like my behavior. Okay, for an example, I don't like my behavior, but I accept my personhood. This entire video is about detaching human behavioral traits, human thinking patterns from your personhood. Okay, give you another example. Spiderweb. Incest, attraction to family members, and POCD-based fears. Okay, so thoughts or images or urges, attraction to people that can't consent, all the major fears that people have in the sexual realm. Again, whether it's cheating, whether there's a consent issue, and stuff like that. You are accepting yourself as the fallible human being that you are for those thoughts, images, and urges to be present, whilst doing your best in a balanced way to allow them to be there. But if you try to desperately control the fear of losing control, like you're trying so hard to be like, look, I'm never going around kids, or I'm never holding my children. I'm not taking that risk, because if I do take that risk and I act on this, it's something that I could have stopped, which means I'm a bad person, which is not how this works. You're just a human that's the behavior. By the way, when you're trying to change this with yourself, the best opportunity that you have is to watch documentaries on things where people commit heinous crimes. You can start with small things such as robbery, all the way up to murder and rape and the really serious ones. And you practice accepting the human beings for who they are and not writing them off. Now, this will be very difficult in certain situations, especially if you're personally affected. There's a lot of atrocious things that happens around the world, but we still, to a degree, want to try our best to look at people like people. Because once we don't look at people like people and we start looking at them like objects, that have mindless capabilities and they're just harming other people in a harm sense, we're still in the harm sense, then it's very easy to lose that compassion. Again, people will easily say, well, you're not in that situation, or you don't live in that place, or you've never been in a situation like that. Yeah, but you're still trying to beat around the bush and give yourself an opportunity to let yourself off the hook by not practicing acceptance, which is not good for you. You got to remember, if something happens in your life, let me actually give you the best example I can think of. I use this a lot. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. If you haven't watched documentaries on him, good place to practice acceptance. He obviously has much different brain structure in many ways that many people don't want to highlight. Because you see these interviews. Didn't you think anything when you did it? Don't you feel remorse? Of course he doesn't feel remorse. He's a socio-psychopath. He doesn't feel remorse. That part of his brain doesn't work well. He doesn't, he's very non-empathetic, and he doesn't have remorse, which is obvious. Those type of brain structures don't feel that, etc. So he was in the courtroom. He got charged with 54 counts. They read name after name, guilty, guilty, guilty. And one of the guys whose daughter he had murdered and then just proceeded to have sexual relations with her corpse, he said, look, I'm a very religious man, and my goal is to accept you because I think it's part of my faith, which I thought was a very difficult and the real definition of brave. Many people use brave. We use that very loosely today, the word brave, kind of like gaslighting and trauma. But brave, when watered down, has no meaning anymore. Most of the words in our dictionaries don't have meaning anymore because we've used them so loosely. And when you use words so loosely, they lose their context. Oh God, the dog just scared the shit out of me. Just jump right there. So anyway, all the comments in the channel, hey buddy, all the comments in the channel were bad. You know, this guy's a disgrace to the other victims, and this guy's an evil person himself for allowing. This is just nonsense. This is the lack of control of one's emotions, which is very, very difficult to do when you're in a situation like this, but it is something you can continually work towards. I have had things happen to me in my life where I did not think I'd be able to apply acceptance doesn't mean agreement. And I have ended up being able to do that in many scenarios. Sometimes things happen in life where I have to brush up on my tools again, and I might lose that for a few seconds here and there because I had a really strong belief about, you know, the world needing to be a nice place and people not acting a certain way. And I have struggled with this. I would be lying to you in certain scenarios. We all struggle with certain things. You know, and that's what it is about being a human. Even when you recovered from OCD, you're still going to have things as a human being that could get you frustrated. And you might have to, as Rob says in a recent post, brush up on the tools again, etc. Maybe you haven't read the Alice book in a while. Let me give you some other ones. Being stuck with OCD for the remainder of your life. Okay, the fear of fear perspective that comes with the territory of having OCD. Now, this goes for OCD, PTSD, GAD, generalized anxiety, panic disorder, and BDD, body dysmorphic disorder. All the anxiety-based disorders or anything else in your life that is an illness, a chronic illness, something where maybe, like I have psoriasis, right? It's an autoimmune condition that will be with me for the rest of my life, more than likely. Yes, unless they cure it. MS is a very similar one, multiple sclerosis. Many people who have stage 4 cancers that can't go into remission, they have to, more than likely would benefit from working on this. So acceptance doesn't mean agreement. You're not liking the fact that you have OCD. You see a lot of people online say, well, just welcome and then like the thoughts. That's a total myth. You're not, that completely negates acceptance doesn't mean agreement. You're not liking the idea that you could be stuck with OCD for the remainder of your life. You're accepting that even if you were stuck with OCD forever. You know, when I really think about it, could I stay stuck with OCD for the remainder of my life in the background the majority of the day with a couple panic attacks every single week? And the answer is absolutely yes. I could completely do that. I would not like that at all, and I would not like to go back to how I was feeling when I left the mental hospital. But as I did survive it before, I more than likely, can't say for sure, more than likely I might get really depressed and do something stupid to myself, but I more than likely would be able to handle it. And if I didn't, I wouldn't. We all die anyway. Many people don't want to accept that reality. That's why accepting the realities of death is so important for life. As we always say, Stoicism is moving towards acceptance of death. That's primarily what the philosophy was built for in many, many ways. It's a preparation for death. You can read many Greco-Roman philosophers who agree with that statement in many ways and practice it over the years. And many people do today who practice different philosophies. But anyway, going back, sorry, I got a little bit off on a tangent right there. But it is important to highlight that you're not liking the thoughts. You're not liking the urges. And you have to say, like for myself, right? I don't like the fact that I could never work out again, okay? Or I could get really fat. I don't like that because I enjoy the self-discipline of training. I enjoy the discipline of lifting weights. And I enjoy the discipline of eating within my means. But I'm a human, and that's not always going to be the case. And I might be traveling, and I might find a gym there, but maybe I don't, and maybe I get injured and I don't. I'm not liking those scenarios, but I'm accepting that that's kind of how the world works in many ways. Not kind of, it's how the world works. You know, applying this to global catastrophes or floods or hurricanes and tornadoes, and again, this is the more that we get bound up in this emotional turmoil of this shouldn't happen, that shouldn't happen. Hello, this is the worst thing ever. This should never happen to me. The more that you do yourself a major disservice. And Rob posted in the group the other day something about the Dalai Lama with anger. And I think when you look at the Dalai Lama, and you were seeing that 2-minute clip in our WhatsApp groups about, it's called like the Dalai Lama on anger. It's from 11 years ago, if you're not in the WhatsApp groups. And he said, anger is a self-inflicted wound, and it clouds your judgment to think clearly. And I think that that's something that I really struggled with for such a long amount of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried to give some practical examples. You got to remember, we're not liking the scenario of any scenario. We're accepting how the world works and our human fallibility. And look for that What's Up link down below. Well, we hope to speak to you soon, and we'll go from there, and enjoy the rest of your day.